Podcasts, The Final Frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast.
There are 4 lights!
Its 5-year mission to explore strange, familiar worlds, to seek out new listeners and new civilizations, to boldly go where most nerds have gone before. Join Matt and Shirley on their 5-year mission with a different guest each week as they talk about an episode of Star Trek, from the original series through Enterprise. They'll cover every episode, eventually.
Hi everybody and welcome back to There Are 4 Lights. My name is Matt and I'm here with Shirley.
Hello.
And we are joined by Jesse Jackson, one of our Southgate Media friends. Jesse, you have a couple of podcasts. Why don't you tell us about those real quick?
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Shirley. It's a joy and an honor to join you guys. Yes, I am Jesse Jackson, not the guy who ran for president. I do multiple podcasts, but my 3 main podcasts are Next Stop Everywhere, which is a Doctor Who podcast, a little show that may be up there with Star Trek. Storming the Castle, which is the ABC show Castle, because I'm a huge Firefly fan, and I had to follow Nathan Fillion. And then the latest podcast, and it's kind of right now, if you know how you don't like to say you have a favorite child,
yeah.
But I started this the past few months, Set Lusting Bruce, which is a podcast about Bruce Springsteen, his fans, and his music. We have different people who are fans of Springsteen come on and talk their story. And then we also do what we call B-side episodes, which is we have people who are Pearl Jam fans, or Daryl Hall and John Oates, or Kate Bush, or musicals, and they come in and talk about that. So it's a very music-centric podcast.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you are currently on our not really a favorite child, but what's really our favorite child podcast. So welcome, and we're glad to have you. This week we are talking about the original series episode, Court Martial, all about a court martial in space.
Which is which episode?
It is officially episode number 19, although I think you're going to have some information on that here in a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Shirley, why don't you give us a quick rundown on the story, and then we'll talk about it for a little bit. Go right ahead.
Okay, so NBC press release, January 16th, 1966. Captain Kirk is charged with negligence and brought to trial following the disappearance and reported death of one of his officers in court-martial on the NBC television network colorcast of Star Trek on February 2nd, 1967. Investigation into the presumed death of Officer Finney, who was lost during a hazardous assignment aboard the Enterprise, discloses evidence that Captain Kirk may have perjured himself in testimony regarding the incident. Kirk's case appears hopeless until a little-known fact in Finney's past is inadvertently revealed by his daughter. And that's all the press release gave. The captain's accuser, the Enterprise's own computer, which offers the damning visual evidence needed to convict Kirk, his primary advisor, Ariel Shaw, Ariel Shaw, the prosecutor at the court-martial hearing, and a former love. She offers further evidence to show that the late Ben Finney had a grudge against Kirk, which may prove motivation for Captain Kirk wanting Finney off of his ship. Kirk's only hope is an outdated defense lawyer who harbors a grudge of his own against the mechanized and dispassionate world of computers. They call the theme of this the battle of man versus machine.
Being a fallacy.
Yeah, being a fallacy.
Yeah.
It is always man against man, for the man is the machine's creator. The hook of the episode seems irresistible. The Canine Mutiny in outer space.
It's Kane.
Kane.
It's the Kane Mutiny. It's that type of story in outer space.
Yeah.
That's what it's saying. The story is pretty simple, but I found it pretty riveting. Jesse, what did you think? What were your first impressions of what was going on?
So I have to share first that I truly hate your kind of podcast. And
oh, no.
Because, I have a full DVR. And I'm trying to stay caught up on current stuff. And this podcast, and you guys were nice enough to invite me, I'm watching this episode. All the joy and happiness of watching classic Star Trek comes back, and I go, okay, now I need to keep watching more episodes so that I can enjoy Matt and Shirley, because I've listened to a few episodes. Right now I'm listening to the Galileo 7 one, and I'm going, nice. I want to see the boulder explode. I want to see the cheesy spears. And so I'm like, I do not have time to watch this. I have the same problem with right now. Joshua Molina is doing a West Wing podcast, and they're going through. And I'm like, I don't have time to rewatch these things. But so anyway, thank you so much. And I say when I hate this, what it means is I love it. Because
I hadn't revealed to Shirley there was a West Wing podcast yet. We had just finished the series about 3 or 4 months ago, and I wanted to give it a little time so they had some episodes out.
Okay.
But
sorry,
that West Wing podcast caught my eye as soon as I saw it. I've already got it subscribed on my phone. So
yeah, and so just to give you, I am older than dirt. I am 57. I can remember seeing a little bit of the Star Trek when it originally came on, but I definitely remember it, in the afternoons, going and watching it. This has been, I remember this very fondly, and was worried that when you went to rewatch this with different eyes, and I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was good. I have some nitpicks and I have some complaints, but I think it's more to do with the time and the way episodes were filmed and how they did things back then. But this was really good, and thank you guys for not getting me to do Spock's brain, though. Now, now that I've said that, maybe I'm angling so you'll have me on for Spock's brain.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the nitpicks I had, because there are a couple, and I don't think that I was riveted by this episode. I was really, really happy with it. But one of the things that caught me was, man, Law and Order has ruined any kind of courtroom drama that came before it for me. It's just not as well put together. It felt dumbed down, and I know that wasn't their intention. They really worked hard at giving us courtroom drama, but Law and Order did it so well for so long, and it feels a little what's the word? A little weak here.
Yeah, because, they're trying to serve different masters. Mark Daniels is the director, and he is, if you go to his IMDb page, as a director, he is a who's who of the episodes he's directed of Star Trek. And actually, if you read, he was a director on I Love Lucy. I mean, he has been Marcus Welby, Kung Fu, Barnaby Jones. And so some of his Star Trek episodes are some of the best. So I really like this episode. I like the pacing. And, a little cheesy at the end that with a magic microphone we can make everyone's heartbeat go away.
Right.
But, hey, it's the future technology.
Yeah, that one, they were like, this white noise device, and then they held up a mic, and I was like, yeah, that's
a microphone,
it's just a microphone, guys. But, you do what you can with the time frame. I really felt like it gave us, this was a very non-action oriented, until the very end, story, but it gave us, looked in depth into the politics of Star Trek at the time, as in the world we're working in, and a little bit of the setup of how, Starfleet Command is set up. This would be the first court-martial of a captain ever before, so that's interesting as well. I think there was a lot of groundwork laid here that I really, really appreciate, and I'm happy to see.
Yeah, some of the first was, this is the first time the nomenclature of Starfleet and Starfleet Command was used.
Really? Oh, yeah, okay.
Right, and then this is the first time that you actually see Starfleet dress uniform.
Yeah, which were weird with their little triangle medals.
Yeah, and also, I never understood why sometimes Kirk was in the yellow tunic and other times in the kind of Arabian Night looking, like the casual, like B uniform, where it kind of crosses at his stomach.
Yeah,
I never know,
thing.
like, okay, when do you play that knot? I also noticed that Spock called himself, I'm Vulcanian. I'm Vulcan. I'm a Vulcan. And I wrote that down going, they dropped that pretty quick, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and this was, surely you were going to mention, and I think this is a good time, this was filmed earlier than the stuff that we were currently watching.
Yes.
So this was
before, the menagerie?
Yeah, this is officially episode 14 in the filming order, but this is like episode 19 in the release order.
Mm-hmm.
So it changes things up a little bit there, too, where we didn't see Sulu. That was a big one. No Sulu at all. No Scotty, but he's hit or miss sometimes. But Sulu has been on the bridge pretty regularly, and he wasn't there this time. And I think that Vulcanian thing... something they worked out eventually. They worked it out. I feel like they've worked it out by the time we get to Galileo 7 and what's the other one we just did? Arena.
Right, because he references himself as Vulcan.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I think that this one's just a weird throwback. I don't understand what they did for this first season as far as filming order and release order, but whatever.
So I have a question to both of you, Matt and Shirley. Mm-hmm. I remember as a kid watching this, fascinated with the 3D chess. Didn't know that was a real thing, and was just, wow, that looks so spacey and futuristic. So is it just me, or did you guys have any impressions when you're seeing Spock play that?
I knew it was I knew it was coming eventually. I didn't realize it was this episode, but I love the idea of 3D chess. I almost overbid somebody at a charity auction in November for a 3D chess board, even though I have no clue how to play and I'm not even very good at chess. But I think it's a very pretty setup. And the way it all works together is great. And to me, 3D chess is very iconic of Star Trek.
I think so, too. And I am right there with you, Matt. My wife laughs at me all the time. I am not a big chess player. I know the rules, but that's it. But I always, every once in a while, will see this really expensive either stone, wood, set or a wooden set. I'm like, wouldn't this just look cool in the house? And and then you could go, wow, if we had a really high-end 3D chess set, it would look really good. And Linda's like, no, we have our bourbon bar. That's enough for us to look nice.
But it could go on the end of the bourbon bar.
You are such a wise woman, Shirley.
I can just see it sitting there.
Yeah. No, I love the 3D chess. I didn't know it was coming. This is pretty early in the series. I think. I'm very happy with seeing it.
I thought, wasn't there an episode where they were doing the where Uhura was singing, and there was that recreational...
Yes, but there was no 3D chess there.
There wasn't a 3D chess
I noted that there was no 3D chess there, because it was just weird.
Yeah, and...
because she was weird.
Kirk mentions to Spock, which I thought was a nice little funny moment, where he says, well, maybe you'll beat your next captain in chess, which was a throwaway line, but it set up, light bulb went over Mr. Spock's head. But I do, and I don't remember in what order, but I remember that Kirk would beat him because he was illogical in his moves. He's very daring and would, either would lose horribly or win, with these big gambles and sweeping moves versus, Mr. Spock, very methodical, calculating on the very what is the best move at any time. So, yeah.
Right. Because I think what I remember, because I watched the original series with my dad when I was growing up, and we had chess in our house. Like, that was one of the games my dad taught me how to play. And when, this will tell you how old I am, when computers started coming out, they had the weird computer chess looking games, and then Wizard's Chess came out. The first variation of Wizard's Chess was really cool. So growing up with chess in the house and then seeing that type of chess, my dad was always, very much use your imagination, think outside of the box. So when I saw it for the first time watching it with my dad, I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, oh, cool, another form of chess. That's really cool. And seeing it again today, I know, it just kind of brought back the warm, fuzzy feeling and memories of playing chess with my dad.
Yeah. And this was not the first time. This is actually the third time we've seen 3D chess. We saw it in Where No Man Has Gone Before and Charlie X, because Charlie blows up one of Spock's pieces.
Okay.
Right.
So this wasn't the first time, but yeah, it's becoming a piece that they keep coming back to, which I love.
Absolutely. Shirley, I love hearing you talk about watching this with your dad. I think that in a lot of ways, Star Trek is like baseball to some people. You'll hear Red Sox fans or Yankee fans or baseball fans, Cub fans, whatever their obsession, that they talk about going to the games with their grandfather, their father, and taking their kids. And I do think that Star Wars, to a certain degree, has done that to a generation, but I think even longer it's been Star Trek, that fathers and mothers who were into science fiction, for the longest time, Star Trek was the best, and so you started bringing your kids up in those, 70s and 80s before Next Generation came around. You showed them the original Star Trek, and that was something that a parent shared with their child. So I love hearing that story.
Right.
Yeah, we had this argument just this past weekend in another podcast about Star Trek versus Star Wars as far as that culture goes. But Star Trek has the ability at the time to come back week after week.
Right,
so it was something you
longevity.
continuously shared, and even when it was reruns, you got to share it every time it came on. So I think that it has a different way of working itself into relationships like that, where you can experience. I would never have watched Star Trek had my dad not started watching The Next Generation when it first started coming out. So, but yeah, I was back to the episode, like that the chess, that throwaway line, like you were saying, like that. The way they just took that throwaway line, and Spock had that clear, obvious, like, oh, aha moment. But even when he did that, like, it lends to the story in such a great way that I don't know. I feel like this is probably one of the best episodes we've seen as far as writing goes.
Right.
So,
which, and I don't mean to cut anybody off, while I was reading my, the chapter on this in my, These Are the Voyages, TOS Season 1 book, they actually thought that this was a very, very badly written episode.
Really?
Yeah, there were 5 writers who actually wrote on this episode. And the reason why they thought it was such a bad written episode is because of the loopholes, all of the plot holes that you would find in it. Can either of you name a couple plot holes, or 2 or 3 off the top of your head?
No. I mean, I'm sure they were there. I really was not looking for them.
Okay.
It lent itself in such a way in the writing that I didn't want to look for them. So,
Jesse?
unlike Galileo 7.
Okay, so I would think that why Jamie, switches around she's so angry at, Captain Kirk, and then later she comes back, and I almost thought, because I was like, oh, is she tricking him? Because she's done a complete about face.
Right.
I don't understand. I think it's a hand wave, as we say in some podcasts, that why would the comment about the chess make the Spock go play chess to see if it would fix things? I think that's a little bit of a stretch. Like, why would that think it? And then I guess, and once again, I think it's a little bit of stretch, but in my mind, come up with a reason, is how quick the Commodore was ready to tear down Kirk, and I think that's got to be about jealousy, being the youngest captain ever, they make a joke about how they have to cut off his, the kind of awards he's won and the honors, so that's the only thing. Those are a few right offhand.
Those are actually good points, but the writer of this book actually didn't mention any of those, but I feel like those are very, very good points.
Yeah.
Those could be very well
I
seen as
failed the test, but I get honorable mention. No, that's
yes,
okay.
There you go. So one, and I feel like as I was reading down the bullet points, a lot of these kind of blend into each other. So it just happens to be that Ben Finney, the guy that Kirk killed, his daughter just is miraculously on this starbase.
Oh, because I just assumed she was on the ship.
Yeah, I did
and
too.
beamed down.
Oh, okay.
But
so
I guess no, because we
established
earlier there are no families on the ship.
Right.
It is just adults.
Right.
I forgot all about that. That didn't click with me.
We're so used to TNG. Where
there's family.
Together. Right. So that's one thing. And then how did all of the people that he go to school with end up at this starbase?
Well, it's Starbase 11. There's only 10 others. They're going to show up at one of the 10.
And then another is, how did everyone know so quickly? How did it leak from the Commodore's office that he was under charges?
Yeah, I don't know. Part of those two I feel like are a lack of showing time transpiring, because
That's
for a trial you have time. I just assumed
they're going to do their research, due diligence,
and you've got to wait for these people, and who knows how long these captains are going to take to get there. Like, that's how I looked at it.
So, and then let me go ahead and go through the next couple points. How is it that the prosecuting attorney, Kirk's past love, and the only man that could defend him in Starfleet, how are they showing up at the base? I think, which are good. And then they brought up the point of one really bad plot hole was, how are we going to expect a microphone to do what the computer could do?
That was a space microphone.
And bleep out everybody's heartbeat, but the computer won't pick up the creaking of the ship or the breathing or whatever. So that was another plot hole.
One of the things I noticed is that, Kirk makes a point, our class is well represented here, and I'm always a little confused on the Starfleet Academy. Is there a leadership course? There's the engineering, all this different. So there are all the different shirts. And at this point, I don't think they had been decided that every ship had its own different icon. That the what we call the iconic, kind of Star Trek emblem, later becomes universal. That's what that's the emblem of everyone. But if you notice on this, the different people have different emblems on their shirt. Some of
shirts.
Yeah. Well, and Kirk was not the same age as the two people that were sitting at the bar that were in his class either.
No.
I understand that, sometimes you just, you pick the actors you have, but like the guy, one of the guys looked really a bit older, and to graduate from Academy at the same time, like that's, I don't know, seemed a little unlikely.
Well, I feel like
no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I totally agree with you, Matt, because I was going, okay, did you, like, were you selected to go in the Academy, like, after you'd already been through regular college and you'd had a career? And it you know, I know they like to make a big deal about, you know, Kirk being the youngest person to ever have the, you know, command of a starship, but if that case, then he shouldn't have said, oh, they're part of our graduating class or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like TNG gave us the, because we've watched it and we're kind of familiar with it, it's given us that suspension of disbelief of time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know in TNG, you know, they kind of let you know, this is going to take this certain amount of time, when in TOS, they don't say this is going to take a certain amount of time, but we think, okay, we know how long it takes, or we don't actually know exactly how long, but we know that it takes some time to prepare for a trial and look through all the evidence, and that guy had tons of piles of books that it looked like he was going to use for this case, so we know that takes time, so I feel like that's the loopholes that the book puts down as bullet points. We don't see them because we're like, Jamie could have come from anywhere. She heard her father pass away, so they're going to get her to the starbase as quick as possible.
Well, but they did say in that specific scene that it was the day before. Like that one specifically, that particular one, that had no time. But like the people being there and getting there, you would pull a prosecutor. Not every starbase happens to have a prosecutor. Maybe, I don't know. It's not real clear. So there are definitely some, what I just chalked up to 60s writing, I guess. There were some issues.
Yeah, I agree, you know, Matt. What I was thinking is, she did say she's with the JAG Corps, and based on my extensive of watching JAG back when it was on, that, you know, so she could have been stationed there. And then she knew the, defense attorney. I'm drawing a blank on the character's name, but, she could have known him, and he's kind of set up shop. I do think in the synopsis, they kind of overplayed Samuel Cogley's aversion to computers. That's a minor point, not so much a big one as they're saying in it.
Yeah. I do, you said it's unlikely that the prosecutor to be there, but let's just face fact. It's likely that Kirk is going to run into some chick that he used to be with.
Right.
I mean, the way that Kirk sees all of the women in the entirety of Starfleet. Right. It's likely that he'll run into someone. Now, so there's at least that.
I know this is one of the things we're going to talk about, but as a child, as a 10, 12-year-old, I thought Kirk being a womanizer was just so cool. As a short, fat kid that's reading Star Trek. As a now, I'm a little, rolling my eyes with it.
A little bit, yeah. Like every woman he ever meets just falls for him. And there's a little bit of that in TOS. Like, Riker gets everybody. Yeah. Like, all the time. Right. They lay off of that eventually, but there's still, even in Voyager, there's a lot of, like, the captain and the bridge crew, like, are always falling, like, people are falling for them. And I don't know, Kirk always seems smarmy, and I feel like that's a writing of the time, so I just kind of brush that aside, but I can see where you're coming from, because as a kid, that seems really cool, but, like, by now, like, I don't know, that's a lot of people. Like, that's just, like, settle down, man.
Well, the thing is, they have this, I don't even know what to, it's not morality. I mean, they have an expanded view of their value base.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So they're not... Go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was going to agree with you that, and this is in '67, height of the James Bond era. Woman in every port. You're working on this. So I think that's their division. Their definition of cool. And they were wanting, Shatner as a sex symbol, though Leonard Nimoy may have something to say about that with everyone loving Spock.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Well, let's. The only other thing that I wanted to mention, because we're kind of covering things that stuck out, which I think is great.
Right.
Shirley mentioned that the four people on the court-martial board, it was racially diverse.
Oh, very.
Which for '67, there was a gentleman who I assume was from India or somewhere in that inner area of Asia. Mm-hmm. There was a black man leading it, and then the other two were indescriptibly white, but still, of the four, half were not white men, which that's always a plus.
Well, the records officer was not a. First off, it wasn't a guy, and it was it was another different kind of face. So that was kind of cool.
It's nice to see that they're working really hard in '67 for diversity.
Yeah.
And they're promoting it in such a way. I really appreciate it, even though that the head of personnel. Okay, so she's that's not somebody we're going to see again, I don't think. But they're okay, this person on the ship, that's just the way they are. That's a position that is open and available, and that, I don't know, with the recent racial tension, it just feels nice that at least something was getting it right back in '67, and we have shows that stand by that kind of thing.
Right.
So.
Okay,
that was one of the things. I'm sorry, I talked too much. That was
no,
one of the
you're
things
fine.
That Gene Roddenberry wanted to do. Now, what I found interesting is later he tried to push that mankind had grown above, or the human race had grown above, pettiness and a lot of internal conflicts, and this was very much. There was jealousy of the Kirk, at least from my vision of it, and a lot of, and then we have the actual, Finney blaming him and going a little bit crazy. So I think that's made this one of the good episodes, is that even though you're in space, these kind of things still happen. That a small thing. You can start dwelling on that, and that becomes what you define yourself as. And he defined himself as, if I had only not gotten that one black mark, everything would have been perfect.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's I agree. I like that a lot.
Right. So the one thing that I was going to point out before we go on to our things that happen every episode was. The ending of this episode was actually filmed differently. The defense attorney actually brings Jamie on board, and she confronts her father and convinces him to confess.
Oh, so there was a separate
how he sabotaged the ship, and then that was cut, and a different scene was put in.
Shatner didn't get to punch anybody, so...
Well, it wasn't Shatner.
What do you mean? No, I'm saying if Shatner doesn't get to punch anybody, it's not a Star Trek episode.
Well, I know, but that was another thing that they brought up in the really bad bullet points. Both of the stunt doubles were horrible.
Oh my goodness, that fight!
That
last fight, the stunt doubles did stick out quite a bit. Did you notice that at all, Jesse?
I'm sorry?
The stunt doubles in that last fight?
Yes, it was, okay, as a kid, I would never notice that, but watching it, it's like, wow, this is so obviously not Shatner, and not the other guy. I mean, not even close.
Yeah. Yeah, it was not. It feels like it was a quick, and maybe it was because it was a reshoot. Like maybe because they changed the story.
Right.
Maybe that was a quick reshoot, and they just didn't touch it up as nicely as they could have. But again, I guess I've come to expect those kind. We noticed it, but I come to expect that kind of stuff.
I feel like if they had mussed up Shatner's hair a little bit to stick out to the side, it would have been fine. But that other guy's hair just did not match Shatner's hair at all.
So, moving on, we're going to head on to our notable guest stars. We've got Alicia Cook Jr. as Samuel Cogley, Esquire. He was the lawyer.
And known famously as...
Shirley? You've got him on there on the page, right?
1940s film noir tough guy, Winston Wendilugo. Wait, nope, that's not it. I lost it.
Magnum P.I., Francis Icepick Hofstadler.
What?
Yeah, he was Icepick on Magnum P.I.
I don't think I've ever seen Magnum
way.
P.I.
What? You never watched Magnum P.I.? I know. Oh my gosh, we're going to have an intervention, Jesse.
So, and I want to know, I felt very old when I said, like, The Land of Giants, please, that is shtick. Oh, it must be about a football team. Oh, they went to a world where it was filled with giants. And so you had these huge sets and these little bitty people. So anyway, yes,
awesome.
I was recognizing, Elijah Cook, and I'm like, what? I know him. He's been in tons of,
right? He has.
Yeah, he's always a bad guy and everything. And then when I saw him, I went, oh, he's Icepick from Magnum P.I. How cool is that?
See, I went even back further than that, so I was just like.
Wow.
But that's awesome.
Yeah, I've never seen Magnum P.I. I may have seen it when I was a kid.
Such a small island anyway,
Yeah.
Yes.
We've got Percy Rodriguez as Commodore Stone, and he's got several shows and
movies.
He was in a T.J. Hooker episode in '83.
Oh my gosh.
He was in Planet of the Apes TV series. That's always good. That you got to know that was great writing. But he has been in several movies that are important.
Yeah, and he has one of those faces where you go, "Oh yeah, that guy." What I found interesting, and this is IMDb, but he was the narrator for Captain EO. For the Michael Jackson, Epcot Center, but that face is just and such authority, and really, really a great presence on that.
Yeah, got Joan Marshall as a real last name is escaping me.
Shaw.
She was in several movies and TV shows, although she ended her career shortly after this. I think she was originally Phoebe Munster in the unaired pilot of The Munsters.
Yes. It does say that.
She looked familiar, and when I looked at her IMDb page, I did not recognize anything. Just a classically 60s beautiful, woman. She had a lot of charm. So here is one of my nitpicks, and it's not, and nitpick's the wrong word. Based on the time this was written and the way TV series, if this was done in a modern time, we would have seen Ariel Shaw again, because she had charismatic, and we would have seen Samuel Cogley return.
And we may have seen the Commodore return, at least in a brief cameo in some other time, but
because he's such an interesting character actor, the Samuel Cogley, and I could see how he would have been just maybe once a season you would have had some kind of law or maybe some investigation, and he would have been back.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last one was Richard Webb, who played Finney. He did some work, although I have to say, honestly, his Wikipedia entry is not nearly as good as it could be. So It's a little harder to see, but he was of some note as the bad guy that we only saw in the third act. So
yes,
and he did the crazy eye really well.
He did. I agree.
Definitely looked crazy. So so those were our big name stars as far as those go. We talked about all the things that stuck out. There were no strange races other than the Vulcanians. Vulcanians, but this was really a heavy human episode, but just Spock, but he's at least half human, so it's really not even a full anything. Was there anything else that stuck out for you guys? Anything else worth touching on real quick?
Jesse?
There's a couple of different things, but I'll leave it as when Spock takes Jamie out of the room, she takes her arm. He takes her arm, and of course, we now know Vulcans are reluctant to talk people because of how quickly they can sense emotions and such. Mm-hmm. So I went, okay, you can tell it's early.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sound for a fanboy for a minute. I love these credits. And whenever the composer on any of the movies puts that Star Trek fanfare in there, I tear up. I just love that fanfare. And that's all I got.
Yeah, no, hey, you're fine. Bones doesn't do a lot other than be a doctor who's an expert in psychology. I mean, he doesn't get a lot of lines other than some stuff that's kind of fed to him.
But I do love his, how come all my old friends don't look like you? And all his old friends look like you. And I thought that was nice.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He does have an Eeyore complex sometimes.
Yes,
but he's still lovable. Kirk got the lady, which you knew I knew as soon as she walked into that room that she was Kirk's lady and he was going to get her. It didn't matter who she was. They were going to end up together in the end. Spock being logical won the thing out because he played himself in chess. I figure if you program the computer, you're playing yourself. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
No deaths in this that didn't get resurrected. So Finney died but did not. Yeah, he undied. But we did see Uhura
pilot the ship.
She got up on that console and was all about piloting that ship. I was very happy about that.
She saved the day.
Yeah. So that was fantastic.
And the Commodore noticed it. Did you notice that?
Yeah. But yeah, so that touches on our reoccurring items. But yeah, this overall, Shirley, what did you think out of 5? Where would you rate this?
The thing is with these episodes, like I remember some of them, and I'll get like snatches, pieces that I remember from watching it with my dad, and most of the episode I didn't remember, but I remembered the microphone because it's so darn quirky. But I think this would be one of my favorite episodes as well. So I would give it a 3.5.
Okay, all right. Jesse, what about you?
So I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 ripped Captain Kirk shirts.
There you go. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I have to say, the writing felt really, really good to me. There were some issues. There's some questionable things. The microphone, some of the plot points we talked about. Honestly, overall, though, it felt really good, and I can overlook a lot of that. I think this is probably one of my favorites. Right behind, another episode with Harry Mudd. I could always do with more Harry Mudd because it's Harry Mudd, but this one I'm going to give it a solid 4 out of 5. I don't have any awesome things to give it, like ripped Kirk shirts. A 4 out of 5 double axe handle to the face.
Nice.
He double punched him right in the face.
Oh, punched him.
Yeah, that's called an axe handle. You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, learned that from D&D.
Is that a wrestling?
Actually, it probably is a wrestling term as well. So Jesse, you got the 3 podcasts. Where can we find you on social media so we can catch a glimpse of those coming out?
Oh, well, thank you. That's kind of you to ask. I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. If you follow me, about every 2 weeks, you'll see someone tweet me something really negative politically, and I have to remind them, no, I'm the Jesse Jackson obsessed with Doctor Who, Star Trek, and Bruce Springsteen.
Slightly different guy.
Yes, slightly different guy. Their Next Stop Everywhere is on the Southgate Media. We are kind of going through a rewatch of classic Who episodes while we're waiting for the new season. Castle is Storming the Castle. You can find that. Huh?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And then Set Listing Bruce is also on Southgate Media. And like I said, that's one of my favorites right now. If you like music, and by the way, I am always looking for guests. So if you have a favorite band or a type of genre of music, email me, send me a Twitter, setlistingbruce@gmail.com, and let me know what you want to talk, and we'll work it out, because I love listening. Music is such an important part of people's lives, and if I can't do a Star Trek podcast every week, the next best thing is to do a music podcast.
Well, sounds like he's going to be getting a message from me, and we're going to do some Professor Elemental.
Oh, that would be great.
Do you know Professor Elemental?
Are you familiar with Professor Elemental?
I do not, so I would love to know.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Well, that, or we could do 5-Year Mission, which is a Star Trek tribute band.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, so actually their intro and exit, our intro and exit for this podcast, that's 5-Year Mission. That's their episode, or their song, The Cage.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
which we
nice.
thank them very much for lending to us.
So yeah, those old Doctor Who episodes have got to be pretty special.
Yeah, what's interesting, Matt, is just like you develop a taste for certain alcoholic beverages, like if you haven't, when you first start drinking beer, you first start drinking vodka or bourbon or whatever your choice, it tastes like, trash. And your friend will say, well, you got to develop the taste for it. And so you make the argument, why do I have to? But you do, and then you end up enjoying, your adult beverage. So when I first started, I'm a new Whovian, and we can end up cutting this out. But so I started with Eccleston, and then I watched Tennant, I watched Matt Smith, and so when I would go back to try to watch classic Who, I didn't get it at all. And Charles Skagg is my cohort in Next Stop Everywhere, and he picked specific episodes for us during our first rewatch. And I said, okay, for the podcast, I'm going to watch them and I'm going to pay attention. And I started enjoying them. And so I think you develop, and I think the same problem could be someone trying to watch the classic, the original series of Star Trek, going, okay, I get past the really, the controls on his command chair. There's dump pod. There's a button that says dump. Pod, and and this different things. And I said, just you got to get past it and get used to it. So that's what the classic Who's have done, and I've now kind of developed a taste for it, and I can appreciate what they are and enjoy it.
Excellent. Yeah. We actually, our next episode is the Return of the Archons with Charles Skaggs.
Oh, good.
Ironically, so we're going to get a double dose of Next Stop Everywhere, but that's fantastic.
Nice.
But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that, when you watch older shows, you have to go, we'll gloss over that one part there. That's, that weird shot they set up, or clearly they had $5 for all of their special effects, and it went into duct tape.
And the cotton ball boulders, yeah.
Oh, that exploding rock. Oh, it's so terrible. All right, well, Jesse,
I'm going to just blatant ask, can I come back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
this
absolutely.
was so much fun.
So you're penciled in for Spock's brain mind.
Yes,
I don't know
Yes.
what. Ironically, same director.
Oh,
Yes.
there you go, Mark Daniel.
We'd love to have you back. We're working through the rest of this season, and then we're into Next Generation Season 1, which will be phenomenally better, because the panels in this, in the original series are killing me.
I keep remembering Farpoint Station, and it's just, like, it's horrendous.
It's so good.
It's the CGI is new, and I'm just gonna have so much to complain
when you
about.
watch these,
I already know it.
When you watch these on Netflix, they're all the remastered stuff.
Right.
So it's not even like, oh look, that's questionable 87 CGI. That's CGI that's been remastered, so it actually looks okay. The Crystalline, we saw the episode with the Crystalline Entity at the movie theater, and it was far better.
Right.
Like, actually dangerous looking. So,
Well, I do have to say, Matt and Shirley, that I not only did I have a fun time doing this, but I am loving listening to your podcast. There is such a joy and a love of the show that comes through on this. I like your guest stars, and this is just a really fun discussion about a beloved podcast, and I hope that your listeners will continue to retweet this and share it. Go to iTunes, leave rate and review, because that is how all of us, we ask that in every podcast, but if they could only understand how that helps us find new listeners.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jesse, you have been a great guest, and thank you for coming on.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
And we will talk to you guys next week about the return of the Archons. I don't know where they went to begin with, but they're back. So we'll talk about that, and you guys have a great night.
And that'll do us tonight for
There Are Four Lights.
Remember, you can email us at therearefourlightspodcast@gmail.com, or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdsdomain, on Twitter at nerdsdomain, or over at our site, nerdsdom.com. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter while you're there. You can head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. A big thanks to 5 Year Mission for their music. You can find them at 5yearmission.net. Don't forget you can support us at patreon.com/nerdsdomain. And check out our shirts at /loot.